Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan salam sejahtera semua. Sebelum kita memulakan sesi webinar kita pada hari ini, izinkan saya untuk meminta respon dari penonton jika anda dapat mendengar suara saya. Alhamdulillah, semua dapat mendengar suara saya dengan baik. Izinkan saya untuk memberikan serangkap pantun. Ke Pekan Kuala membeli bingka, sayang persanan terlupa sudah. Majlis bermula, tirai dibuka dengan alunan madah yang indah. Pertama sekali ingin saya ucapkan terima kasih kepada anda semua yang sudi untuk meluangkan masa bersama kami. Saya pasti ada di antara anda yang sibuk dengan kerja masing-masing dan ada yang mahu menyiapkan tugasan dan sebagainya. Tapi anda tetap sudi untuk menghadiri dan meluangkan masa untuk sesi webinar pada kali ini. Sebelum kita pergi lebih jauh dalam sesi webinar ini, saya ingin memperkenalkan diri saya. Saya Muhammad Asri bin RAZALI dan bersama sahabat saya Muhammad NAZHAN bin NAZRI. Dipersilakan NAZHAN.
Okey, baik. Terima kasih kepada sahabat saya iaitu Asri Razali. Okay, jadi nama saya Muhammad NAZHAN bin NAZRI. Kami juga merupakan pelajar ijazah sarjana muda teknologi serta pendidikan di Universiti Teknologi Malaysia di Skudai, Johor Bahru. Selaku moderator anda pada hari ini. Jadi topik sesi webinar kita pada hari ini adalah tentang IT Change Management. Is ITIL Best Practice Working for You? Saya ulang topik dalam bahasa Malaysia. Pengesahan perubahan IT. Adakah amalan terbaik ITIL berfungsi untuk anda? Jadi, panel yang kami ingin jemput pada hari ini adalah panel yang betul-betul layak untuk mengupas topik pada hari ini, iaitu Encik Muhammad Rizal Muhammad Sultan selaku IT Network Regional Manager di ITIL Teknologi Sdn Bhd yang bertempat di kawasan perindustrian Bayan Lepas di Pulau Penang. Encik Rizal juga okay, baik, terima kasih kepada Encik Rizal kerana sudi meluangkan masa bersama kami pada hari ini. Encik Rizal dengan saya ke?
Ya, saya dengar.
Apa khabar Encik Rizal? Sihat ke?
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Baik, sebelum kami memulakan sesi webinar pada hari ini, izinkan saya untuk memberikan serangkap pantun. Ingin rasa memakan kari cendawan batang keladi, girang rasa tidak terperi, bertemu tuan yang baik budi. Pihak kami mengalu-alukan kepada anda semua jika anda mempunyai sebarang soalan ataupun pertanyaan, jadi boleh mengajukan soalan tersebut di ruangan komen Facebook ini. Dan insyaAllah soalan-soalannya anda akan diajukan kepada panel di akhir webinar kita pada hari ini. Jadi masa yang telah ditunggu-tunggu telah pun tiba. Saya menjemput Encik Muhammad Rizal Ibrahim untuk berkongsi sedikit latar belakang diri dan juga karier. Dipersilakan Encik Rizal.
Okey, terima kasih moderator. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. Nama saya Muhammad Rizal Ibrahim Muhammad Sultan. Base dekat Penang, out of Penang. Pantun tadi sangat cantik tapi masya-Allah saya tak pandai berpantun, so tak dapat menjawab. Tapi very nice pantun. Just a little bit about myself kan, before we start. So saya ni ex-student from UUM. Saya graduate from UUM long time ago, before the wind, before the snow, right? Saya dah tua dah. So basically I'm like the third batch IT program dekat UUM di Sintok. Rezeki saya after I graduated, there was a lot of offer from KL and from Penang, but mengikut nasihat arwah ibu saya took on the offer from Intel. So saya continue to be based out of Penang, and it is also very fortunate that bila saya masuk Intel, I was working on a few early project, including a greenfield project. Greenfield meaning a new setup of a factory dekat Intel Kulim at that time. And then after doing all of those, I start to do project management, and it is at that time, early 2000, to that ITIL come to the fore. ITIL menjadi macam de facto framework, and it is also fortunate that Intel at that time invested on ITIL, so I get to not only work practice ITIL but also do certification and whatnot. I'm a certified service manager for ITIL version 2 and version 3. For those that have been following ITIL would know that ITIL now has a version 4. I tak sampai ke version 4. And from there, from that early 2000, I continue to be an ITIL practitioner, if you may. Sampailah ke hari ni, it becomes like a bedrock of how IT at Intel deliver our service. Now, in regards to my career, I worked for Intel 10 years, and then 2007, sorry, I left Intel. I went to KL to work for a shared service, running a data center for them, a regional role. And it was a completely different industry and different way of doing things. But again, ITIL is at the center. It's the key process, the key framework in delivering IT service. And in a shared service environment, it's totally different, right? Shared service means that you want quality, you want lower cost, and ITIL works very well in managing those, right? Managing quality and cost. And it's a fully outsourced service as well, where the IT that I'm attached to, basically ada 6 orang saja. There were 6 people under me, and then the rest are vendor in Singapore, and they run everything for us. So we become like more of an account manager. So there was real money transaction and whatnot. So there was a financial bit that I learned a lot in that role. After 4 years in that company, it's a British American tobacco IT shared service company. After 4 years, Intel beckoned, Intel offered me to come back, and then I took that opportunity. It was a good offer, so I came back to Intel. And at that time, I was my specific role was as a change manager for a IT organization that is supporting the factory globally. So I came in, and one of the tasks that I was given was to actually put together a better change management process and release process. And there were a few problem that needs fixing, and came back, did that, and then after I think 3 years in that role, I left that organization and I joined network organization still in Intel IT, and I'm now currently the regional network manager for Intel IT. But I continue to practice ITIL. The organization continue to practice ITIL, even though in 2018 we embark on Agile, Scrum, Agile Persistent Team (APT), which open up an opportunity to learn new things, bringing Agile into infrastructure. But ITIL is still there. It's still the key framework, it's still the governance for all what we do to ensure quality and also cost. So that's a little bit about myself. So when I was engaged. Hafizu engaged me. You know, the director for this program engaged me. We were discussing on the topic, right? So he suggested that this is a topic that I should talk about. Change management is either best practice working for you. The reason why I wanted to have that question there, you know, as part of the title is um, against to address the notion that ITIL is a framework. You know, it's a suggestion, best practice suggestion. It works, you know, in the industry, but doesn't mean that you can just take sebiji, and then try to force fit the entire ITIL into your organization, because different organization has different sizes, a different priority, different demand, different supply, different culture. Culture is also important, right? Different culture. So you have to tweak the best practice so that you get the best value out of it. It's all about value. Okay. So let's go to the next slide. I can't actually see the slide. Oh, it's coming up. Okay. Let's go to the first slide. Oh, second slide. Okay. So before we jump into, you know, the change management, I wanted to take a short time to look through at the history of ITIL. Apakah ITIL ni? Right? So ITIL is IT Infra Library. So infrastructure library. The first version was 1989. Probably some of you were not born yet, right? And it was developed again. You know, it's a UK government initiative, Central Computing and Telecommunication Agency. Um, for history buff out there, right? The late 80s. There's something happening in the world, especially relating to UK. There was the Falkland War, tahun late 80s, right? The Falkland War, peperangan over a small piece of land, an island, uh, bersebelahan dengan Argentina. Argentina want to take it back. You know, it was occupied by the British for a long time, and there is some I think article back then that says I came across a couple of articles, in fact, when I was studying ITIL, that the Falkland War was the trigger for the CCTA, the Central Computing and Telecommunication Agency, to sanction the work on ITIL ni. Again, to improve quality and cost of government IT services. Whether it's true or not, you know, I don't know. But I think one thing for certain, that it is a government venture, you know, endeavor. UK wanted to improve the quality and cost of their IT services, right? So that was version 1, and then in 2001 we had the version 2, service support and service delivery. I won't go into the detail, right? But this pretty much covers the two key area of IT service. Let's use UTM as an example, right? Look at UTM, we would have a IT department that provide IT service to the entire UTM population. So that's the customer. One thing is the support of whatever that is put in place, and then the second thing is delivering new enhancement, right? New things that will be put to meet certain requirements or business goal and whatnot. So that two alone, I think, was enough. Version 2. This is when I I go and get I go and get my certification. And then 2007, they start to add more things there. Service strategy, service design, and service transition is where change management lies. It's in service transition, and then service operation, and then the last, which is a very important one, is the continuous service improvement, which is embedded, and it becomes a circle around the strategy, the design, the transition, and operation. So version 3, I think I did my certification for version 3 in 2000, maybe 2012, something like that, right? And then version 4, to be honest, completely honest, full transparency, I have only looked briefly at version 4, and the note I put there, it's a revised model of ITIL. No longer we have all the boxes, but it's all like become integrated into one. But I won't be able to answer any question at all on version 4. So sorry about that, right? So in essence, ITIL is a best practice for IT service management. It's a framework. It's a library where we can pick and choose, right? Which book we want to read, which process we want to use, which area we need help, right? But as a whole, it's a framework to run the whole gamut of IT service to the customer. And other keyword is that if you go back to the initial idea, that version 1 is to improve quality and cost. So we must hold to that, right? Quality and cost. And in version 3, the continuous service improvement is another key item that we must look into as part of the process. Not only something that you would improve is when something break. There is a tendency in IT organization, we only fix something that is broken. So dalam ITIL, what is trying to suggest is that service improvement is continuous. You don't have to wait until something is broken. When you see the signal that something is gonna break, it becomes like a predictive a bit. This is very, very early before predictive methodology is yet to be comprehended because there's no such technology. But from a process standpoint, ITIL as early as 2007 is already advocating continuous service improvement. So now this ITIL, what it has become is that it's become a de facto standard, macam standard yang a standard that is de facto, yang tak tertulis but it's there, right? For many large corporation, it is the bedrock of the IT service management, and there is a benefit that all this organization is reaping from ITIL. It's a customer-driven approach, quality and cost, right? And of course, certification pun banyak. We're not talking only about certification of ITIL that is coming from the custodian of ITIL, Exola tu semua, but we're talking about ISO, right? ISO 20,000, for example. It's information technology service management. It's pretty much derived from ITIL. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so since the topic today is about change management, so we're gonna go straight to change management, right? In ITIL, for every process, it will highlight the objective so that people understand why are we doing this process. For change management, very simple, straight to the point. The objective is to manage risk. I'll talk more about what kind of risk that we're talking about in the next slide. But sometimes this very objective is forgotten. I've experienced it, in my working, in my career as well, where you already have the process, right? And the process from a simple process, it becomes this big, ugly, heavy process, and it loses its objectivity of managing risk. It becomes so complex that you forget to manage the risk itself. It's become this big shiny item that people pride, especially the change advisory board, for example, right? But it is not managing risk, and you'll see the result. If it's not managing risk, you will see the result that the organization will suffer from if change risk is not managed properly. But again, what is change, right? Before I proceed to the next one, change is add, modify, remove. That's pretty much it. Right? That's a simple scope for change. What encompasses within the change management is when you're doing an add, you're modifying or you're removing any component within the IT service. So for example, like in network, is pretty straightforward, right? If you are extending a new network, you're creating a new VLAN, for example, that's adding, that's supporting the growth of the business. If you're doing configuration change on your distribution router, that's modify, right? If you are upgrading your Cisco switch iOS, that's modify. And then if you are removing a switch, an old access switch, for example, that's remove. And it is very, very important that you clarify the scope of what is changed. There were some bad experience that I've gone through, where certain change was not included as part of change management because it never gets, there was no discussion about what is the meaning of change, and we only find out later after something broke, right? Simple things that people say, oh, this is a repetitive task. It's not a change, it's a task. It's a repetitive task, it's low risk, there's no way that something can go wrong, right? It is being executed by our technician, no problem. We have been doing it for many, many years, donkey years already, since day one, tak ada masalah. And then, whole and behold, one fine day, something broke, and then, you suddenly have a unscheduled outage that impacted the business and costs, if not million, a few $100,000, right? So clarity on the scope of change and what constitute as a change is very important. And then ITIL also define the type of change. So there's standard change. This is pre-authorized, low risk, repetitive. So the example that I give tadi itu about a repetitive task, low risk, then it becomes a standard change, and there's a certain treatment for it. A standard change, to me, currently in my organization, what we are striving is standard change kita nak buat automated. Kita tak nak human buat, because human, there's a saying, for human is to err, ERR. Ini philosophy sikit lah. For human is to err means that untuk manusia ni kita pasti akan buat kesilapan. Dia hanya menanti hari. It's just waiting for that fine day when all the stars line up. you will make mistake. So for standard change in my organization, what we are striving is we are automating it so that there is no human intervention. It is all one button. I click, it runs. I click, it runs. We are at the juncture where we are planning, to go one level up in our automation, that it becomes predictive. If something happen, I want the system to run this standard change for me, maybe to clear logs and whatnot. I don't even want people to press a button. I want it to be smart enough, to run automatically, and then just give me the count of how many times you're running this and whatnot, so that I have analytics, that I can analyze if there is some other issue, that I need to look at, right? So that's where we're going with standard change. No more human interaction, so it become purely repetitive and 100%, or at least 99.9999 sure that it will be successful. And then the next one is normal change. Normal change, you gonna break it into three different scope: minor, significant, major. So minor, low risk, probably not repetitive, but still low risk. Significant is high risk. Will take a couple of hours at least to do. And then major is super high risk, and these are changes that we usually would do when there is a major schedule downtime, right? For example, recently, at least at Intel, based on my experience, we re-platform our entire network from a one type of switch to another type of switch. It's a major revamp of the entire network in one of the campus in Asia. So that took many hours to do. That's massive. And then last is emergency change. Emergency change will happen. When I look at my past experience, emergency change is all about break fix. Break fix is when something broken and then you need to fix it. Sometimes it's just a hardware replacement. It's very straightforward, right? Sometimes it's a iOS upgrade. Sometimes you have to update your firmware to fix a new bug, a new bug that previously you don't know about, right? So that becomes a break fix. Even in a break fix scenario, you would want a governance around it. You would want an emergency change. You want it to be part of your change management, so you're not leaving anything to chance, right? Okay. And then last is the governance, right? I'm trying to summarize it into these three different section. Obviously, there's a lot more detail into it, but I'm approaching it from these three areas. So define governance. This is the heartbeat, right? Because we're talking about implementation here. When you implement, you are defining certain guideline, guardrail, if you may, so that you know what success looks like, and you have a body that own the process and would continue to improve the process and would continue to check your dashboard, whether you're doing good or not. So change advisory board, for those that work in the IT, when you mention the very word change advisory board, especially for operation, IT operation, it's a word yang orang tak suka. And then there's a reason for it, because change advisory board ni, let's say I'm an engineer, I nak buat change, I've been planning my change, and this change is not suka-suka I nak buat, right? I'm doing it for the organization. there's a need for this change. It's a need to enable something to make sure that the business can proceed to do what they're doing. So, but if I follow change management process, then there will be requests for change. I can fill out form. There's a lot of paperwork. I also have to share my technical approach. I have to share bila I nak buat. I have to share what else? Whether I'm communicating with the customer, whether this require downtime, whether customer has given approval, and it could be a discussion of between 1 to 2 hours depending on the scope of that particular change. If it's a major change, yeah, it could be a a long discussion. And then inside this change advisory board, you would have people that a very technical person, people like at principal engineer level. You're gonna have leaders, you're gonna have managers, senior managers, and they will be asking you, grilling you, right? And nobody really have fun going through change advisory board. And it is it is what it is. That's what I always say, because change advisory board, their main purpose in life is to harass change owner. And I say that with a great endearment, because I've experienced in building a change advisory board. I've experienced in participating change advisory board, and I've also, obviously, early in my career, I have experience in presenting in change advisory board many times. So the priority for change advisory board is to make sure that you are well prepared before you execute the change. And there are organizations that actually track how many change that was reviewed in the change advisory board got approved at the first time of sharing. Because we wanted to know how are people performing when they come and present to change advisory board. How many follow-up do they get? For example, I share, and then they say, "Oh, you don't have this information, you don't have that information. Go and get those information, then come back next week." So if we want to articulate, have all this information, because you can't manage what you cannot measure. So it becomes very articulate, the cap, and it can get stressful, especially for change implementer. But I always tell people that this is the insurance. Treat change advisory board as your insurance. If you go and get full approval from the change advisory board and you still fail, from a technical perspective you fail, not from a human error, from a technical perspective you still fail, that means that it's a co-ownership. That failure is a co-ownership between you and the change advisory board. So that's how you should look at the change advisory board. And then the success criteria. Now, success criteria, I give you an example. In my organization, we look at every quarter, we look at how many change we execute, different type of change, the total change, how many we execute, how many are successful, right? Our target is, 99% success. And we also want zero change-related major incident. You can have a minor incident, but you cannot have major incident from a change. And it's difficult, right, to hit that target, but it is what we aspire to do. And then every change-related incident would require a full investigation and postmortem. because you don't want to repeat it, right? And then of course there's human error that we have to manage. Like I said earlier, for human is to err, so you need to create a safety net, right? Because you know that human will make mistake. So what kind of safety net do you create? For example, peer installer or buddy system. I can't, for a significant and major change, I cannot do it alone. I gotta have a peer, a buddy, so that my buddy would be behind me looking at what I'm doing, so that I don't, do typo and whatnot. So it works. It works very well, but it comes with a cost. Now you have two people to do one job, but there's value to it. You won't do buddy system for all type of change, but you would do for significant and major because it's high risk. You invest, but it has a value, right? Okay, so that's change management. Let's go to the next slide. I won't be taking answer yet. We'll go to the Q&A. Okay, so in this slide, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to put a explanation on value versus investment. Like everything else, there is investment that is required. It's sometimes you see the value, you know the value, but if you don't articulate it, you don't measure it, then it doesn't support the investment. Value, the big picture, the first one is the big picture. This is a struggle in IT organization, where we do our work. We sit in our data center, our network operation center, our call center, tech, and we don't want to be bothered with how the business is evolving. Just leave me alone. I want to deliver IT service, but don't bother me with business strategy and whatnot. That's the wrong mindset. So even at a tactical level like change management, which is it's very tactical, right? Even at that level, you want to enable the process and the organization, especially your CAP, right? Your change advisory board, to have that big picture of how IT affect business. It's a holistic view, in fact. We want to talk like the business. I give you an example. Let's say that every end of the year, business is struggling, or no, maybe not not a good word to use, struggle. Business is trying to achieve certain goal for the year. Every year, in December, business is working hard, maybe working overtime, trying to either close the deal for the year, either trying to manufacture all the committed orders for the year, right? Even quarterly, right? Even quarterly for that matter. And this become something that is repetitive. Business know about it. Business is super clear about it. But is IT super clear about it? Is the CAP super clear about it? If I'm running a CAP, I want my CAP to really align with the business. What's the business doing? What is the business calendar? I want to see the entire year. What are their calendar? When are they laser focus on production, for example, or laser focus on marketing, right? So it is that this time that I probably would be thinking to myself that, hey, maybe I don't want IT to do any changes at this time, because I want the IT service, IT infrastructure to not be at risk of a change, a failed change. Maybe the last week of the year, I want, change freeze, business do whatever you need to do, will stand on the side, supporting but not doing changes. So that's just one tiny example of the big picture, aligning with the business. So it's a value. If you look at an ITIL standpoint, especially at the strategic level, this is very important, right? Next one is to reduce risk, right? This goes back to the first slide, managing risk objective, right? And we do it differently, right? We talk about classification of changes just now. We talk about governance, right? So this is the value. And from a network perspective, or rather from a, not network, but rather from a IT change perspective, there's a research that was done by Dimensional Research. It says that 70% of this is a network thing. 70%, 74% of IT network unplanned outage is contributed by planned change, and I can vouch to that. I can say that that's true. I live this, in my career. 74% of unplanned outage is contributed by planned change. Can you imagine that, right? It's very alarming, right? But it is what it is. And with this unplanned outage come costs, right? So you're talking about higher availability and higher quality, because once you have those metrics, you know where you want to focus on from a change management perspective. So and another another data that is interesting is that 97 out of the 74% outages, network unplanned outages, 97% of it is due to human error. So it sounds like very easy to solve, right? Oh, human error, I just go talk to the guy. Tapi like I say, for human is to err. So organization, IT organization struggle with this. That's why people are moving away from human doing the change, getting the system or robots to do the change, because robots or system are more predictive. You can be 100% sure kalau dia run, dia akan execute flawlessly, right? So big picture, reduce risk, higher availability and quality. Tapi what are the investment, right? What are the investment that we need to put on? Number one is the process, and process, like I say previously about macam CAP tu, it takes effort, right? It takes time. Let's say you have 10 people part of the CAP, and then you have the change owner coming in, and then probably the backup change owner is also there. So that's 12 people sitting in a meeting. So that's 12 man hour already if the meeting ends in 1 hour. And that's cost to organization. So some people say, oh, this is overhead, it's a burden, it's this, cost that don't hit the bottom line directly, but I would rather have my engineer do something better than presenting to CAP. People that always question this are people that have not experienced, massive unplanned outages due to change, right? That costs millions and millions of dollars. But it's an investment that needs to be acknowledged. It's real. Second one is tool. Tool. When I talk about tool, when we do all this, end-to-end change management process, there needs to be a tool, and usually it's a service management system. Macam what's the hottest right now in the market? ServiceNow, right? And there's a cost associated to it. Of course, there are open source system also out there that we can use. So, but still, it's something that you have to manage and maintain. So that's an investment that you need to make as well. And then last but not least is the organization commitment. ITIL use the word strong agreement from all stakeholders. You cannot be like half-hearted. IT can internally in IT, everybody needs to be committed. All the organization or department within IT, for example, like network, application, everybody needs to be in agreement that we're gonna use this, because this will not be a success if only a small department is applying it. And IT is so interrelated that if you try to implement change management or even ITIL for that matter in just one small area, it won't work. It won't bring the value to the company. Probably would only bring the value to that small group of people. It won't bring the value to the overall IT, and it won't bring the value to the organization, right? So that's a split between balance between value and investment. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So in this slide, I'm asking question rather than giving answers, right? Again, this is a real relevant slide for organization that has done or has rolled out change management process, whether it's ITIL or something else, right? Is your change management process working for you? So in our case today, it's ITIL, right? Is your ITIL change management process working for you? And this can be applied to ITIL as a whole, right? So when you start this journey, ITIL journey, you work backward a bit. You set the success criteria early on. You want to be able to set what success looks like early on, so that as you work backward, okay, this is success. Let's say 100% change success of change implementation. That's your target. Then you build all the process. You work backward. If you are meeting your implementation success rate, then that means that your process is working for you, right? But bear in mind that you should not stop there. You should, if you are already meeting all this indicator, you should ask yourself, should I raise the bar? Right? Life is about improving, it's continuous improvement. Should I raise the bar? And then you should also look at, while you are getting the result, what is it doing to the organization? You'll be surprised to see, if you peel the onion a bit. Sometimes IT process or even change management process can put a lot of stress on people while you are getting the result, but your organization suffer. You might have more turnover. People are leaving your department or your company, right? So it's linking all those data, ensuring that your ITIL process or change management process, while it's hitting the target, it's not creating other problem, right? Next one is again indicator. How many changes resulted in unplanned service outage? Now, unplanned service outage can be, there's a different category to it. Some unplanned service outage doesn't trigger major incident. So it's good, right? It's good that it doesn't trigger major incident, but it still require full treatment. When that happens, you still need to go through the entire process of, problem management. So that's another ITIL process, right? But there are other unplanned service outage that could that trigger major incident. Now, talking about unplanned service outage, downtime of IT. There's a Gartner report that says on average for large scale companies, every minute of a IT downtime that impacted customer, the cost is about 5,600 US dollar per minute. So now that's a lot of money, right, for a large scale company. This number varies based on each company, but for large scale company, that's the average, $5,600 per minute. Now, let's use Facebook, for example, right? Facebook had a massive outage in 2019, last year. It was around, I think, 14 hours, right? So the estimated cost of that 14-hour outage for Facebook was 90 million. Cost, loss of opportunity, loss of, advert time and whatnot, right? So that's huge, right? That's 14 hours only. So, but of course, Facebook is, gigantic. Its customer base is like, in the billions, right? But that is to show that IT outages has, the downtime of IT has cost to each company, whether you're small or you're big, medium, there always is cost, right? And that's the value of change management. You want to check, you want to make sure that, hey, I am able to ensure availability whenever I do change, right? Next one is, are you meeting your customer availability expectation? So this sounds, a bit like, redundant, because, hey, if I'm giving you 99%, you should be happy already, or 99.995 or whatever, right? You should be happy. But without having a discussion with the customer, you never know. And this comes from experience as well. There are times when customer are okay with 80%. Right. So you want to have this discussion, not once a year. You want to have this type of discussion at a minimum, every 6 months. You want to know how you're doing, and you'll be surprised to sometimes get feedback from the customer that, hey, I'm good, guys. There was a 2-hour downtime last quarter, but I'm good because it's not impacting my business. So this type of discussion needs to happen so that we are aligned with what they want. And sometimes the availability expectation changes within the calendar. Now going back to what I mentioned about, there are sensitive period in a year where customer probably is expecting 100% availability. Right. So have that discussion, have that alignment. And then last, are you aligned with the business? Again, this is more at the strategic level. And customer or business knowing what we are doing, not in the detail, they don't need to know in the detail, but customer knowing that, hey, we have rolled out this process, we roll out ITIL, we're going to roll out ITIL, or we have rolled out ITIL, or whatever, right? Having this discussion with them and aligning with them sometimes bring out different ideas from the customer. So IT is not about sitting in your data center, sitting in your area, sitting in your network operation center. IT now is more about creating value to the business, to the overall organization, and it is super important that we keep that alignment, we keep having that discussion, and that's what ITIL envisioned, in 1989. It won quality at a quality and affordability. That's the two basic objective of version 1 of ITIL, and that become the bedrock of as ITIL evolved to version 4, that still become the bedrock of ITIL. My the way I see it, I would say that it's my vision is that ITIL can also be used by small companies. Our SME, for example, right? A lot of SME, IT related SME out there can really benefit from ITIL, but it's just that the way that we execute and implement ITIL have to suit SME. It cannot be heavy. It cannot be too many overhead. But the fundamental can still be used. That's why I keep saying that it's a framework, and it's we are the one that decide how we want to use it to our benefit, right? So with that, I end my slides, and can we open up for Q&A, guys?
Yes,
Okay.
let's go to the Q&A. Terima kasih Encik Rizal untuk pembentangan tadi. Sangat-sangat detail ya yang telah diberikan oleh Encik Rizal. Okey, daripada penonton, untuk soalan pertama, adakah perubahan pengurusan berlaku hanya pada organisasi yang banyak masalah sahaja? Dalam kurungan perubahan kurang baik kepada baik. Bagaimana pula dengan organisasi yang kurang masalah? Dan bolehkah organisasi yang kurang masalah melakukan perubahan perubahan baik kepada lebih baik? Ini lebih saya rasa 3 soalan.
Wow, Kroni Selatan.
Terus ya, Cik Rizal.
I like that name.
Nama sangat unik.
Okay, I like the word Selatan because wife saya orang Muar. So adakah perubahan pengurusan? So I think question ni banyak dia about pengurusan. So kalau I interpret the question, it's more about management, perubahan dalam pengurusan. Okay, let me try to answer it. Dalam ITIL, bila dia trigger ITIL in 1989 tu, memang it's because ada problem, quality teruk, cost tinggi. It was early days, so they wanted to fix it. So that's why they introduced ITIL. So kepada soalan ni, idea ITIL datang dari organisasi yang banyak masalah. So they wanted something better. Tapi bolehkah kita buat change management process ni untuk pengurusan yang tak ada masalah? Wah, kita semua happy ya, it's ideal, it's nirvana. Semua change yang kita buat cantik, tak pernah ada problem. Sukar untuk kita cari tempat macam ni, tapi mungkin ada. Kalau the success rate of implementation semua dah tahap 100%, IT still kita boleh ambil, right, in the spirit of continuous improvement. Tapi kita pick and choose yang mana kita nak guna, because like I say, sometimes the sign the signal that something is going wrong is already there, that something gonna go wrong is already there, tapi kita tak nampak. Kita just nampak on the surface, oh semua cantik lah. Tapi kita tak tahu that during a change, probably change owner selalu, instead of, they say they're gonna do it in 1 hour, but they do it in 1 hour and 10 minutes. So that is sign already there. Something is wrong. And then when you have, that number keep, that delta of time between what's planned and what's real begin to jadi lebih besar, that delta, then one day you're gonna get hit. So my answer would be biased because I'm a IT practitioner. So I cakap, my answer would be, kalau organisasi tu tak ada masalah pun, I would still suggest that look at ITIL, look at the best practice, and then pick and choose. Jangan ambil semua. Pick and choose apa yang perlu, apa yang boleh kita improve. Yeah.
Terima kasih Encik Rizal untuk soalan pertama tadi, dan terima kasih kepada Kroni Selatan. Okey, kita bergerak kepada soalan kedua pula daripada penonton, daripada Pidosmi. Saya ada soalan. Adakah akan berlaku perubahan pada masa akan datang di mana industri akan lebih menggunakan teknologi berbanding kepakaran manusia? Jika ya, apakah akan berlaku kepada kepakaran manusia yang akan datang? Adakah ada sesuatu yang mereka boleh lakukan untuk memastikan mereka sentiasa relevan untuk berada di dalam industri? Terima kasih. Boleh Encik Rizal jawab untuk soalan kedua ini?
Tadi saya ada sentuh about standard change, kita nak 100% sistem buat. Kita tak mau orang buat. Because it's repetitive, it's low risk, less thinking is required, it's programmable lah, let's put it that way. Kerja-kerja yang macam ni, repetitive task ni, orang yang buat tu pun akan get bored. After a while, they get bored. So, it is in the interest of not only the organisation but also our engineer supaya they don't do this task anymore because it's repetitive, they're boring. You buat benda ni after a year, you will, you akan, oh man, dalam network kita ada buat VLAN trunking, VLAN trunking. It's repetitive, it's boring, tapi kita tak boleh automate lagi. People complain, apalah buat lagi benda ni. And we did have error, human error that caused downtime because of this simple task. So ada task yang memang human tak nak buat. So I'm using just a network example just now. And after dia mungkin nak buat after 2 months, 3 months, especially new hire yang baru keluar dari universiti ni, dia very excited kan dia nak buat. After 4 months they say boring. And when they get to that phase of boring, that's when they make mistake. So this kind of task memang kita nak pun machine take over, right? The age of the robots. I ada terbaca article about phases of artificial intelligence, right? So we are still early on, and even now you can't really say that a computer can even mimic human punya brain fully. So they are certain tasks that they are very good at, but not. But that day will come. If I can recall ini government agency punya paper. I was reading it last month. I think tahun 2050. So the day will come. The day will come. So there's no stopping it. It's something that we have to embrace, right? The day will come where there are work that more and more work will not be relevant to us. In fact, I think the day will come when we will not be allowed to drive.
Yes, betul.
Yeah, kita human, kita tak reliable. Kita accident, langgar orang, kita tak macam last week I balik Mohd, right? I drive all the way. I human, I get tired. I pun dah tua, I get tired, right? Bagi anak I drive, dia drive laju. so
tak reliable, right? Tak reliable. So there will come a time when I think there will be a law that prohibit human from driving because kita tak reliable. Kita akan cause chaos. And then at that time, kita pun tak, I probably won't own a car. Kita nak pergi mana-mana, just pick up our phone and, order a car, and then a driverless taxi will come in front of my house, and then I pergi mana I nak pergi. So, but there are still stuff that is relevant to us. Example, I think I'll use a industry that is not IT, law. So my daughter baru masuk first semester ambil law. So one of the thing that we were talking about is there are effort made to automate decision, in the law practices. We're talking about decision, you bersalah or you tak bersalah, right? And it obviously, if you put the right algo, computer can make those decisions. Tapi is that the right thing to do, right? They can make decision based on the right algo, but do you want to go there? I mean, there's a whole, ethical discussion that needs to happen. But it's interesting, even in the area of law, there are people that is looking at this, right? So it's not pure science, law, but there are an element that can be automated. It's scary, but people are actually looking at it. So I harap boleh I answer the question, tapi there will come a day that kita punya role and kita punya task will be, some people like to say more high value, but I think our task tu akan jadi semakin kecil, right? Lain semua robot buat.
Kita cuma perlu bersedia je lah, ya betul Cik Rizal.
Yeah. Industri 4.0 ni kan. Yeah.
Baik Cik Rizal, kita akan bergerak ke soalan yang terakhir. Soalan terakhir daripada Khairul Mirza. Dalam sesebuah syarikat yang sedang melakukan perubahan pengurusan, apakah bentuk latihan yang dijalankan terhadap pekerja? Berapa lama masa diambil untuk capai matlamat perubahan yang dilakukan?
Wow. Okay. Let me use experience. My experience. Because change management ni, none of at least in my experience, is never done alone. It never done as one piece. It's done together with ITIL. And then you pick and choose, which ITIL process you want to apply. And then you do it. So I cannot answer just for change management, perubahan pengurusan. Paling penting ialah baseline. So we start with baseline. Baseline ni kita tengok apa proses yang ada. Usually walaupun kita tak apply ITIL, kita mesti ada certain proses. Kalau tak, macam mana organisation tu run, right? So kita buat baseline. Depending on the size of the organisation, baseline can be from 1 week to 1 year. So but average is, I think, about 1 quarter lah, 3 bulan. If you want to be super detail, you nak uncover semua batu-batu tu, tengok apa ada ulat bawah batu tu semua dalam organisation, probably 2-3 bulan. Once you have the baseline, then you can know, okay, apa yang working for the organisation and apa yang tak work for the organisation. Because part of baseline is you want to know performance as well. And then you start to look at, ITIL punya framework, yang mana you nak ambil. This is where consultant, make their living, right? IT consultant would come in and, they would charge an arm and a leg untuk buat this implementation. Sometimes it's just a strategy, right? So once you know what you need to implement, then Khairul I think was spot on lah about latihan pekerja tu. Latihan pekerja ni very important because everybody needs to be on board, right? Everybody needs to be on board. So when you start to develop the whole process, you would want to get opinion from your pekerja. Not everybody, obviously, but key people that probably is holding key roles, even at the engineer level. You want them to give feedback, because when you do this, you are actually making sure that they feel inclusive in the decision making. And bila orang inclusive, right? Orang feel inclusive, the higher chance of them supporting your endeavor, your implementation, your rollout. So inclusivity of the implementation to start early on at the design phase, right? And then 3 bulan, another 3 bulan for design, get feedback, tweak, and then latihan. If you start to drum up the plan early on, by the time you get to do the training, everybody is already aware of what the organization is trying to do. I always find it very inspiring when you get people, include people in the strategic discussion. Again, not everybody, but key people, even at the engineer level, right? You will get feedback, and then you get support as you move forward. And then bila you buat training, everybody is excited, right? Chances of excitement is there. People get excited, and then people embrace the new. So total, I would say between 6 to 8 months. Again, depending on the organization. And I'm not just talking about change management. It's the whole ITIL. Sebab kita tak boleh buat change management sahaja. Kita kena ambil a few minimum, right? Like problem management kena buat juga. And that's for another topic about basic implementation, the very basic implementation that of ITIL that organization can go and can do. I've done a few consultants work, while I was in KL, including to a government agency where we buat kecil-kecilan, but the value is big. Okay.
Baik, terima kasih Encik Rizal untuk soalan terakhir tadi. Jadi sebelum kita bergerak ke penutup, boleh Encik Rizal memberikan sepatah dua kata untuk pelajar-pelajar. Boleh Encik Rizal. Boleh Encik Rizal memberikan sepatah dua kata kepada pelajar-pelajar yang masih lagi yang mahu mencari kerja di zaman yang agak mencabar sekarang ini?
So nasihat saya ni is from somebody yang dah graduate but still dalam dalam industri, still learning, right? Because learning is a lifelong journey, never ends. Every day there's always something new. But one thing that I've learned is that daripada dekat universiti lagi, kita kena selalu buka telinga and mendengar what's happening outside, and then our lecturer tu kan, we need to treat them like a treasure. Saya ada banyak cerita relationship dengan lecturer saya dulu that I still keep until today, di mana lecturer ni membina, dia guide kita, not only dalam classroom but outside of classroom as well. So of course not some lecturer there are lecturer that is inspiring kan. So those lecturer tu kita the one that we find that we can connect to them. Sebab budak-budak Malaysia especially dia kurang nak connect dengan lecturer tu. The connection dengan lecturer tu usually is just for I nak pass this class I'm aiming for A lah. So the objective of that relationship is just for me to get an A, but it's goes beyond that, and then the other one is keeping your eyes and your ear open for what's happening in the outside. Your generation and my generation is so different. Your generation, everything is at your fingertip, right? You get the information, spend that time, right? Spend that time. Utilize your library. I was talking earlier to ASRI and NAZHAN just now about library, how I miss library after I graduate, right? Of course now library is a different animal, right? Library pun banyak online sources, resources and whatnot. But take the time as you're studying. Take the time of this pursuit of a degree as a time to enlighten yourself, right? Because you are a professional student, you are a professional, pencari ilmu professional, let's put it that way, right? So jadilah seorang yang professional, mencari ilmu yang bukan saja ilmu yang ada di depan you, but beyond that. And UTM is such a great university kan, one of the best, right? So you guys are very lucky. So bersyukur that you are in UTM and don't waste that opportunity. That would be my advice.
Terima kasih Encik Rizal. Baiklah NAZHAN.
Terima kasih Encik Rizal atas dorongan yang bermanfaat ataupun tips yang diberikan. Terima kasih Encik Rizal.
Alright, terima kasih and thank you for the opportunity guys. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam. Dan baik, sebelum kita mengakhiri webinar kita ni, nampaknya pun masa pun macam bagi kita. Sebelum tu saya nak ucapkan ribuan terima kasih daripada pihak kami kepada Dekan Pendidikan, pensyarah-pensyarah dan juga kepada Encik Rizal Ibrahim dari ITIL Teknologi Sdn Bhd kerana sudi menjadi panel jemputan webinar pada hari ini. Dan terima kasih juga kepada rakan-rakan dan penonton yang menghadiri sesi webinar pada hari ini. Jadi sebelum saya menutup sesi webinar pada hari ini, saya ingin memberikan serangkap pantun. Dari Kedah ke Pekansari, beli swasta di Kota Tinggi. Selesai sudah tugas diberi, di lain masa bersuar lagi. Sekian sahaja daripada kami, memohon maaf untuk sebarang kelemahan ataupun kesilapan daripada kami sepanjang menganjurkan sesi webinar pada hari ini. Yang baik datang dari Yang Maha Esa, yang lemah datang daripada kami. Jadi kita akhiri sesi webinar pada hari ini dengan tasbih, kifarah dan surah Al-As bagi yang beragama Islam. Okey, terima kasih sekali lagi kepada semua yang menonton dan terima kasih kepada Encik Rizal. Semoga kita berjumpa lagi ya.
Allah. Assalamualaikum.
InsyaAllah. Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam.
Sekian, terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.